Peters.
Hello.
Joe Peters. Hello, hello. Welcome to the Spanish World Network and the Her Network on the single TV channels 250 and 251. Happy Friday to all of you that are tuning in today. I don't care if it's very early in the morning in the West Coast or you are in the future in the other side of the world. Thank you for choosing to be here with us on this weekend before Halloween. Please also remember to download the Single TV app in the respective app stores. When you are downloading, make sure to rate and leave a comment. The app is free. Single TV is also available on Google Chromecast, Amazon Fire, Fire TV Stick, Roku, and Roku Stick in all the smart TVs since 2016. And then, if you are not following me yet in social media, please write down at Joe Unicorn Coach. Go to Instagram, go to Facebook, and follow me there. If you have any questions, any challenges, any problems, any issues around motherhood, remember that my mission and the mission of this show is helping you to win the marathon of motherhood without burnout, to help you to have your unicorn life mom edition. So we are very excited to be here with Jess today because Jess is going to be talking a little bit about intuitive eating and how that is being navigated when you also are being a mom and how you can do both. I'm super excited to have Jess here. We were talking a little bit behind the scenes, but in the green stage. Jess is a ACE certified personal trainer and group fitness instructor. She's also gym class dropout, certified personal trainer, and group fitness instructor. She founded the Enlight Well, a virtual personal training studio in 2020, middle of the pandemic. So she pivot to help all the communities to stay fit and good and took ownership of the Power Plant Gym in Aston, Pennsylvania in 2023. Jess came to a career in fitness after a career in mental health. That is a perfect match for what we are talking. She's also a licensed clinical social worker in New Jersey, and she's passionate about health at every size and intuitive eating. When she discovered trauma informed stress training, she started incorporating those principles into her work as a personal trainer. She valued making fitness more inclusive and accessible and focused on empowering aspects of movement. Jess, I am super, super excited to have you here with us. Welcome. And why we don't start a little bit with your phrase before we even talk a little bit about your story. I asked all my guests to share a phrase that they love, and your phrase was simple and very curious. Your phrase was both can be true. Jess, welcome to the show, and please let us know why that was your favorite phrase to share today.
I I think for me, like, it's easy to fall into the trap of like black and white thinking, or thinking that like you can only be one thing. And I like to remember that like both things can be true, because it helps me to like, I guess, like live more in the nuance and be able to be open to different experiences, and just be able to approach things with like more openness, you know?
And I think that that is one of the biggest things that we have when we get into that motherhood of that all or nothing mentality. I think that both things can be true. One of the things that I usually say is 50 shades of gray. And this, instead of black and white, you have 50 shades of gray that can get there. So tell us a little bit about your story. How you make your movement from mental health to fitness, and then how you start in a holistic way, incorporating everything, doing what you are doing now.
Um, so I was not like an active or athletic kid or teenager at all. And then kind of got into I started out with triathlon, was like the first like sport that I did as an adult. Kind of a weird place to start, but I don't know, you'll see that sort of my whole journey has been just doing things in not an order that makes sense sometimes. um, but I found that like I really loved being able to compete and like just finding new ways to challenge myself. Gradually, like, you know, eventually I have two kids. So I tried to stay active through pregnancy. It definitely was difficult at times with like the fatigue and the morning sickness. Um, but, you know, did my best. And then I started to, like, after my kids were born, I definitely struggled with like postpartum depression. Um, and I think I had plans to like, I'm going to keep working out. This is going to be great. But it was really hard to like still keep up working and taking care of young kids and like getting up early in the morning. Um, so like, you know, I kind of did my best. And then as they got a little bit older, like I got back into running. Um, for a while, I was like really focused on losing weight and worked with some coaches who had me following like pretty aggressive diet plans, and eventually got to a point where it was like, this is just not working anymore. Like I would stick to my plan all week and then like binge kind of out of control on the weekends. And I was just feeling like frustrated. My body image was not great, even though I was like probably the smallest that I've been in my entire life. Um, and that is when I discovered intuitive eating. Um, so the thing with intuitive eating is it's more about trying to follow your hunger and fullness cues and learning to be in better like connection with your body. Um, you allow yourself to eat all different foods, but just pay attention to like how it's making you feel, and then kind of follow the lead of like what your body's telling you. Um, and I would say from there, like kind of at the same time, I was like reaching a point of being burned out in my career and was starting to make a pivot into fitness. And then, you know, you kind of said the rest. I started out strictly online and then took over the gym here last year, and kind of the hopefully shortish and sweet of it.
Okay, cool. I think that is so important what you are saying, because that is something that I see all the time as well. And I think that uh, first, I don't know what's going on. I don't know if you were or not, but I was a geriatric mom. I had my baby at 37. So you have your baby. Few years later, you start perimenopause, and then you start facing a different level of things in your body with your hormones, with everything. And then you start facing that I'm doing everything that I was doing before and I'm not seeing the results. And you keep trying
Right.
to do the diets and the workouts that the men gurus are telling you to do, or that the 25-year-old chicks are telling you to do. And bless their heart, they are trying to tell you what worked for them, but your body doesn't have testiculus and a penis, and your body is not the body of a 24, 25 young person. So I think that gets a lot of that frustration, and I think that that frustration also increasing to that binging of not only weekend, not weekend, week and weekend, but also that frustration of I'm doing everything right and I'm not seeing anything happening. So what the heck? I'm gonna just go all the board. So I love that you are saying about intuitive eating, and I totally agree with that. One of the things that I know that you are big into, and I would love to touch that with you, is making peace with food. I think that
Okay.
that is something that I'm being very, not only trying to do it myself, but for example, with my children, make sure that they don't have that he doesn't have to make peace with food because I'm labeling all this food. So I want to hear your take
Yeah.
on what making peace with food means.
I gotta say, I really love seeing like our generation of moms trying not to create the same problems that we have grown up with around like food and body image and like confidence, you know? So making peace with food, like as we work through the principles of intuitive eating, so there's 10 principles, one of which is making peace with food. And one of the things that we try to do as we're working on that principle is to allow ourselves to eat all different foods. So a lot of people will have certain foods that they feel very out of control with. And um it's generally the restriction or like the viewing of that food as something that you can't have that creates that out of control feeling. So that then when you're like around that food or when you do allow yourself to eat it, that it's like, oh man, like kind of you said this, like that feeling of like, well, now I've blown it, so I might as well go all in. Um, if you're just allowed to eat that food when you want to, then it's not a big deal. And it doesn't have that like neon flashing forbidden sign around it. And so you can just eat it and it's not a big deal. And I've also had clients where like we've worked through eating some of their forbidden foods. And as they work through eating them, sometimes they find that they don't even like them that much. Like I remember having a client who one of her forbidden foods was like those little I can't think of the brand of them, but they're like the little Christmas tree things that they're like white and have little green sprinkles on them and they come in like a plastic wrapper. I can't think of the brand of them. But she had built this up in her brain so much when she actually sat down and ate it. She was like, I don't even really enjoy the taste of these. Like they taste kind of like just very fake and like kind of like plasticky and like kind of too sweet. And I don't even really want to finish eating it. And not that that should necessarily be the goal. Like one of my forbidden foods was Oreos, and like I still love Oreos, but I can eat some Oreos now without eating the entire box of Oreos because I can have them anytime, and it's not like a huge deal. Um, so it's definitely a process. One of the things, if you're trying to have kids who don't grow up to a point where they're like, oh man, now I need to unpack all these weird food things. Um, Keeping like snacks and treats available, um, trying to not create like a hierarchy of like these are good foods and bad foods. I like to talk about like that some foods have a lot of nutrition in them, and that's great. And we need to eat a lot of foods that have a lot of nutrition, but some foods might taste good and we might enjoy eating them, and some of those might not have as much nutrition, so we should still enjoy those foods, but we need to eat some stuff that has nutrition too. And I think kids have a lot more capacity to understand that than people might give them credit for sometimes. um, but yeah, I think one of the things that I have worked on with my kids is like that we need to eat like a like a balanced diet. I mean, it sounds so simple, but like a mix of things that are nutritious, things that are filling, things that have protein, and then also things that we enjoy and that just feel good in our bodies and make us happy. And like that's fine. We can eat all of them.
I think that is so important what you're saying, and I think that it requires also some additional work, right? Because I think it's important that we start learning, oh, why do we need the protein? Oh, we need the protein so your muscles grow. So then the conversation is, I love that, and I'm a big proponent of that with kids and with the clients is stop labeling foods. Stop labeling food as good and bad because that also create that shame and guilt when they have the bad foods. Because if I'm having the bad food by default, I'm doing a bad choice. I'm a bad person. What is wrong with me? So stop labeling it. I love what you were saying about the nutrition and understanding. Oh, carrots are really good for your eyes. Muscles, protein help you with your muscles. So then you start making the connection in their brains about why they are important for their health. And one thing that actually also that enjoy a lot too is that you say before, and I'm doing it with my 3-year old that loves candy, is being very mindful into connecting the effect of the candy. And I'm not going to say that all the kids react the same to candy and all the kids react the same to coloring, but there are kids that are more sensitive. There are kids, I had ADHD, I think that he's very close there. So candy is very triggering for him. So instead of saying,
Mm.
oh, that's bad, I say like, huh, are you having a lot of big emotions right now? What do we have different today? Oh, it was that cake that we have in the birthday party with a lot of frosting. Yeah. Yeah, it's hard. Sometimes sugar makes us have big emotions. So then it's not about him, cake is bad for me or that is bad food. It's like, oh, if I'm going to have it, like you said, the Oreos, I'm going to have it. I'm just gonna have a couple because if I have an entire piece, I'm gonna have such a
Right.
big sugar crush that I'm not going to feel good. So I love that insight into what you are saying. No label and start connecting what the foods are bringing. Because going back into one of the things that you say before that I would love to touch with you is the mindful part of the eating with making peace with the food. I was smiling when you were talking about the Christmas treat for your client because I believe that, and then this blow my mind because people are like, well, I've been working on this for this long time and I'm still struggling. I'm like, dude, society is putting billions of dollars every day against you with this concept, with two things, chemicals and things that make things more addictive and tasting better. And then the
Right.
idea that you need to be eating, seeing your phone or watching a TV movie or doing all that so you are not conscious tasting really the food. I love that exercise that you did with your client into really mindfully sitting down and eating it. And she was like, I don't really like the taste. And I think that I do that a lot too. It's like, okay, you want to have it, but you are going to eat it without a TV, without a phone, without having a conversation. You are going to eat it completely present into how each bite feels. So let's gonna talk a little bit about that into the difference between eating present into each bite and eating mindlessly and how that impact intuitive eating and mess are triggered into understanding what our body is telling us.
So I guess before before we go like further into this, I would like to just put like a caveat to this. I have worked with some folks who are usually it's like if they maybe have autism or other like kind of sensory sensitivities, sometimes practicing that mindful eating ends up being like too intense for them. So like I guess my caveat just is like this your mileage may vary. Um for most folks though, um being able to reduce the distractions like you said like not being scrolling on your phone or watching TV or doing a million other things while you're eating. One of the things that I like to do for this is if folks can pick, because like trying to do 3 meals a day with absolutely no distractions, like that's a lot. um so picking like maybe a few meals per week, or like let's try to like reduce the distractions during dinner or maybe during breakfast, like whichever one kind of like you pick the one that works best with your lifestyle. Or maybe it's like I'm not going to eat work at my desk or eat lunch at my desk during work. I'm going to like go and take a proper lunch break and give myself the 15 or 20 minutes break to like eat, enjoy my meal, and have that as like your boundary during your work day. um one of there's a few different ways that I like to work with people on just like slowing down eating a little bit. And both of these are things that I would have people do for like a few weeks to work on, and then maybe we revisit it periodically. They're not things that I would have you do like for the entire rest of your life. Um, so the first one is if you have food in your mouth, that your fork is down on the plate. Most of us tend to, like, as I am eating, I put the food in my mouth and then I'm immediately, while I'm chewing, getting my fork full of the next bite. And like, look, that's fine most of the time. I don't want every meal to be a 45-minute long experience. But as we're working on being more mindful about eating, it's a great practice just to work on slowing down a little bit. And like I said, I'm not saying that you should do that for the whole rest of your life, but like try it out for a week or so and see how that goes. The other thing that I like to have folks work on is somewhere around the middle of your meal to put your fork down, set a timer for 60 seconds. During that 60 seconds, check in with yourself. How full am I feeling? Am I enjoying this meal? Does this meal taste good? And so you just spend about a minute checking in with yourself. And it's very important that when you're doing this check-in, that you give yourself permission to, like, if I'm still a little bit hungry, that I can eat more. The point of like that pause is not that like I do the check-in and like now I'm done. The point of the pause is to like take that moment, check in with yourself, see how it's feeling, and then make a choice whether to keep eating or not. And either choice is equally acceptable. So like those are a couple of the things that I like to get folks to work on to just to increase their mindfulness a little bit around food.
And I love, love, love that because once again, we are talking about it can be both at the same time. It's not black and white because one of the biggest resistance for a lot of people that are trying to heal their relationship with food is they hear talking and the only thing that they hear is like, oh my God, I don't have time to spend an hour every time with my meals. That is 3 hours per day. That is 24 hours a week. I don't have that time. So I love that it's like, stop. It's not every meal. If you just take a couple of meals to do it, that will give you the trick. And I love how you are bringing back into there is a middle part. The other one, what you were saying is pick a couple of meals. One of the things that I was thinking when you were saying that is pick the meals that you feel most of the control to actually have that mindful into, okay, what are the feelings that I have around this food? Because then we go a lot into also emotional eating. That is like, what are the triggers? What are the memories that I have? What I do? Like I always share this. In Colombia, there is a scream shop that is not very affordable. So I remember growing up, my parents were middle class. They were not able to take me there very often. And then when I start working, because in Colombia we stay living with our parents until we're like 30, when I start working and my parents were still paying everything at the home and I start having money, guess what I start doing? I start going there every week and buying a warm brownie with ice cream, and then for a long time, 10, 15 years later, every time that I was triggered into feeling caged or want to be rebel or want to like feel free, guess what I will eat? I will eat that because the connection was like, back then I was like, F you, I don't need you to buy me anything. I have my own money and I'm gonna spend my money in the expensive brownie that you didn't want to buy me. So I think that that is an important game to actually start understanding the reason behind, because I don't think that we are doing things just by habit. I think that whatever it is bringing us into a need that is being unmet, either physically, psychologically, emotionally. So I love how you are giving them. I'm gonna do the exercise of the fork because I was laughing, especially with a 3 year old. Like it's almost like a race. How fast I can eat so I can keep up. Um, let's gonna talk a little bit about how this intuitive eating and these exercises can help us into respecting ourselves and our body more and seeing our body as the amazing thing that it is.
So I think part of my own journey with it is like I went from a place of like I just need to make myself as small as I can be to like when I started to move into intuitive eating, I definitely gained weight uh, doing that, um, and started to shift my focus to like getting strong and seeing like what I could do. Um, and I think focusing more on like getting stronger and pushing the limits of what I can achieve, what I can accomplish, rather than trying to push the limits of like how literally small can I make my body be. Um, like that was a big that was a big turning point for me, you know. Um, I think I do want to talk a little bit about emotional eating because what you were talking about, that like rebellious eating, is it's so common and so often there's a lot of like the kind of things that you talked about, like that family history and like economic factors and all those things that like weave into that emotional eating. Um, so one of the things that I like to talk about is that like it's fine to emotionally eat sometimes. Um, we in most cultures eat for a lot of different types of feelings. We eat to celebrate. We eat together to grieve. We eat to connect, to like, you know, kind of like the phrase breaking bread. Like there's a reason that that is a thing that crosses many different cultures, and that it's a thing that humans do together, right? Um, so I think the idea that like all emotional eating is negative or something to be avoided is not great. At the same time, what I like to work with folks on is cultivating more awareness about it so that um, it's not like, oh man, here I am at the bottom of this half gallon of ice cream. How did I get here? Um, so one of the things that I like, and it's kind of another like a different type of mindfulness practice, but I'll have folks, if they find themselves, very often what'll happen is people find themselves kind of cruising around the kitchen, poking around looking for something, but not real sure what, and just not really knowing like what am I doing in here? I keep just sort of like poking around at different things. Nothing quite sounds like the thing. So taking, again, it's like 60 seconds to check in. How am I feeling right now emotionally? Like what is happening? And you know, sometimes it's like you're bored, you're lonely, you're stressed, you're overwhelmed. Maybe there's some other need happening in your body that you're like uh trying to poke at some food to fill some other thing that's missing. um and so check in with yourself about that. Then I encourage folks to think about what other coping strategies could I potentially use to deal with this emotion or this thing that's showing up. And do I want to use one of those, or would I rather make the choice to eat some food? Um, and either option is fine. Sometimes it's okay to feel sad and to eat some ice cream about it. What I encourage folks to do is to don't just like stand in the kitchen eating directly out of the half gallon. Put some in a bowl, go somewhere, like sit down, make yourself comfortable, and eat the ice cream and enjoy it, right? Um, so it's really about bringing just some more mindfulness and some more awareness to it so that it's not like, um, you know, even I loved how you talked about like with your experience, kind of developing that awareness that like, I am I'm not eating this brownie because like it's necessarily what I want. I'm eating it to show that like I can do what I want to. I am a grown up. and and like I think just being more aware of those things, like that doesn't mean you need to never eat that brownie and ice cream again. Like that's fine, but like is that the choice that you really want to make right now? Is the way that I want to show my independence, is it by eating a brownie? And sometimes the answer might be yes, and that's fine.
I think that it gets a new level of freedom, because I completely agree with you. This is not about you. Oh, and I going back to the labels. It's not about saying emotional eating is bad or good. We're going back into that black and white, good or bad. I agree with you. I think that is the freedom is, if you are emotionally eating, we want you to be conscious about the emotional eating. So it's not about you never emotional eating. It's about you being conscious about, I am emotionally eating and I'm choosing to emotionally eat, and that's fine, because then
Yeah.
that bring back the power to you, so you are not completely powerless because of the foods, because you are emotionally eating. That is what normally happen. But you are you are empowering to saying, I am making this choice aware of what is happening, and
Yeah.
aware that I have other options, and aware that I still want to have this. And I think that when we go into that level of consciousness, it's also easier to, circling back to what we were talking before, pay attention to how that make us feel. Like
Yeah.
circling back into my ice cream and brownie, I also suffer from depression. And I found out a few years ago that refined sugar was a big trigger for my depression. So with the brownie and the ice cream, I start, because I was conscious. I was like, well, I still want to know that I can do whatever the F I want. So I'm gonna have the brownie. It start coming up when I fight with my husband. I was like, I'm gonna go for ice cream. But then I start saying, oh, do I really want it? And then I start eating it and saying, oh, the next day I was like, oh, I am feeling really low. I'm feeling really depressed. So next time that happened, I was like, will this be worth it? Will be worth
Right.
it for me to do this choice of emotional eating, when I know in my body, in my genes, that this is going to make me a little more likely to have a depression dip. So I think that is all about us bringing back the power to ourselves and feeling empowered and strong about eating, and knowing that it's not something to be scared of. I want to hear your opinion on this, because I think that is so much BS in the world about dieting and exercising and looking on a specific size, that especially for us females, this is becoming a topic that creates stress and anxiety and fear of
Yeah.
what I need to do.
Yeah. Um, so I mean, I think there's a lot of like just weird fads and trends that seem to take off on social media, and then people get like real sucked into. Um, and most of us know like kind of good general nutritional guidance, right? Like eat more fruits and vegetables, try to get some like good sources of protein. Um, you don't need to go like no carb. That's not necessary for most people for like your overall health and well-being. Um, that it's like eat a diverse range of foods with some priority to like fruits, vegetables, and protein sources, and you're probably doing great. Um, and then as far as movement, like, so in intuitive eating, we talk about joyful movement. So finding movement that brings you joy, things that you enjoy. Um, and I think it's a lot easier to stick to a movement routine if you can find something that feels at least a little bit fun or enjoyable for you. I know, I work with some folks who are like, I just don't even like the feeling of sweating. I understand it's difficult sometimes, but I think it's really important for women, especially, to try to do some type of strength training. Um, One of the things that I see a lot is people selling things as being strength training for women that they're not. It's not really strength training. It's cardio with like some light dumbbells. Um, And it's so interesting to see women come in who are like afraid of lifting weights when I watch them schlep around diaper bags and babies in car seat. And I'm like, that baby and car seat together is like 40 pounds. Your diaper bag's another 40. You're carrying this all in 2 arms, but then I hand you a 25-pound weight and you're like, I don't know, that seems kind of heavy. Girl, you're stronger than you think that you are. You're not going to turn into Hulk overnight. And building muscle is so important for us, especially as we age. We should be a lot more worried about losing muscle than about putting on muscle. It's such a protective factor against things like fractures and falls as we get older. Um, and I think maybe my perspective on some of those things has changed a bit as I've been in my 40s, not like in my 20s. um, but yet lifting, it really helps to, one of the things that I did not know until, maybe 10 years ago or so is that lifting also helps to strengthen your bones and your connective tissue. So, like your ligaments and tendons, they also can get stronger through strength training. So, by strengthening both your bones and your connective tissue, you make them more resilient and more resistant to injury. So, things like, tears, fractures, all that stuff. And I just think that is so important for us as we get older throughout our lifespan.
Oh my God, I love you, and I love everything that you are saying. Is so so true. And it's funny that you say about the sweating because I was that person. I was like, I don't even like to sweat when I'm having sex. I don't want to work out. Like, but then part of what is so important, what you are saying is find that thing that give you joy and trigger. What I start finding when I start doing the training, the strength training, is that feeling of feeling a little more strong and being able to push myself a little bit more, and like at the beginning not doing being able to do pull-ups or push-ups and then start doing it, that
Yeah.
start trumping my I don't want to sweat. So now, yeah, to be honest with you, I still don't enjoy sweating and I still don't enjoy smelling when I sweat, but I heck love that feeling of I'm getting stronger. So I think it is very important into finding that make you joyful. And with the weights, I think that we are being, probably society is, we are seeing the 20-year-olds being very thin, just doing Pilates or running, very lean. And then we are seeing the only people that lift are these Arnold Schwarzenegger, completely disproportional people that we are like, I don't want to look like that. But I love your example on take a look into what you carry every day. Like moms picking up your child in the first floor and carrying your child to the second floor to their
Yes.
bedroom. Holy
Yes.
cow. And I think that a lot of times is about us trying something that we never did. Like today was an example. I was doing some squats with a weight and I had a 55 pounds weight, and in the last round, somebody took that weight, and the only weight that was there was 75. And I was like, oh, I'm not going to be able to do it. That is too much. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to just do, even if I do two or three. I was able to freaking do it for 35 seconds with the 75. And then every time that
Love
I
it.
squat, I was like, I am a freaking badass. So I think that that is part of that feeling of feeling strong and normalizing that is not one thing, because that is another thing that I believe that society is being damaging, especially women 35 and older, and is only intuitive eating is not going to completely fix your health and your life. Only lifting
Right.
is not. It's a holistic approach where you are paying attention to what do you put in your body, how make you feel. And then I love your message about strength training and normalizing that we need to do that, and that we need to be proud about that way that we live. I love your slogan. I'm going to start using it. We need to be more worried about losing muscle than gaining muscle as we age, because the reality is gaining muscle, like Arnold Schwarzenegger is, correct me if I'm wrong, but really hard to do, especially for a female over 40.
Yes. Yeah. For most women, our hormone profile is not gonna allow us to put on that kind of muscle that fast. And I don't I don't love the word like toned or toning, because there's like not really any such thing, and I think it starts to lead into the like uh I think it kind of feeds into weird body image stuff. But for most women who want that look of like having a little bit of visible muscle, the way to get there isn't by like um doing nothing but like dance classes. And no shade to dance classes. If you're enjoying your dance class, do your dance class. But if your goal is like, I want to like be able to see a little bit of muscle, it's by lifting weights. You're gonna lift weights and that's gonna give you that little bit of visible muscle that you want. Um, and I often go back to like the quality of life stuff, like, and I love that you were talking about like just that feeling of empowerment, like when you can do a thing that you couldn't do before, or when you like hit a new PR, or just, knowing that like my kids are 12 and 14 now, I can still carry them both, you know? And that's like, that's really cool to know that like I can do that. Um, and I don't know, it feels good to be strong. I feel like it's a little addictive sometimes, like hitting PRs in the gym, and every time it's like, oh, look at me doing this thing I didn't even know I could do. Yeah, it's a good feeling.
And I, for everybody that doesn't know, because I didn't knew, PR, what Jess is talking about, is personal record. That is very
Thank
gratificating
you.
because you are not competing with anybody else but yourself, your personal record, and start hitting that personal record. So I think that as we start wrapping up, we have so many golden nuggets here. So I would love for you to rewatch it. And we talk about intuitive eating tips. Just give you a lot of tips about putting the fork down, start thinking into how you feel, stop going around the pantry and the kitchen just crazy, stop and feeling what are happening, um, treating your body with respect. Don't label for yourself or your children, that is so important, food. And be careful into when you are commenting on dieting, how you do it in front of your children. So we literally stop this nonsense, like the famous movie right now, it Stop With Us. This nonsense of BS around eating needs to stop with our generation. And then I love the message about complementing that with a strength training and feeling powerful and strong. And I think that nothing will, like you were saying, encourage a mom to do all of these, that knowing even if I'm alone with my 14-year-old and something happened, I will be able to put him in my shoulder and figure out where I need to go for help, like, right?
Um,
So it takes us
I
from that.
maybe that's one way to think about it. I like my teenager to remember when they think they're gonna get real sassy that like I will scoop you up.
There you go. Either way, like, don't mess with me,
But
but
yeah, maybe
it's going into that. Yes, it's going into that empowerment of, we are freaking strong, we are powerful. And as more we grow old, as more we need to find ways to feel like that mentally, physically, and emotionally. and all of these that Jess came to share with us into intuitive eating and workout, all is into that. So as we start wrapping up, Jess, if you have a message to share with all the moms around the world that are watching the show that are starting their journey on health, that are not very sure about intuitive eating, that are not very sure or scared about weights, what would be that message for them? And then if they really
I think
resonate like I did with your energy, how they can reach out to you, how they can get in contact with you. Can you hear me?
so. I think in terms of like the hopefully this, yeah, there. Okay, my computer was doing something for a second. In terms of like just like last thoughts for moms who are like with yourself, give yourself time. It is a marathon, not a sprint. And also to remember that like we're teaching our kids in a different way than probably most of us were brought up. I mean, I was a teenager in the 90s and it was wild, man. Oh gosh. And so like it's really important work to like take care of yourself so that you can let your kids see something different than like what we grew up with. Um and then like how to reach me. So our gym's Instagram is, sorry, there's a truck driving by out there. We are at Power Plant Strength on Instagram. I think that's also how you can find us on Facebook. Our web address is thepowerplantgym.com. You can feel free to email me personally from there. Happy to hear from folks if they have questions, or yeah, I can, happy to
So
help folks get
please,
started if I can.
yes. So a big favor for all of you. Go and find Jess. Go and send her an email. And hey, if you are in Pennsylvania, go and check out the gym. I would love to see pictures of you, selfies of you and Jess getting into those big weights. And then if you are not in Pennsylvania, then still follow her, share with your friends. Let's gonna support each other. Jess, thank you so much for being here. It was a pleasure to have you here. Thank you for sharing all your wisdom and your passion about this, about how we can be badass moms in our marathon. And for everybody else, have a wonderful weekend. Enjoy your time with your kids now closer to Halloween. And remember, this show can also be heard on the Spanglish Radio Network. Please check out www.spanglishworld.ca for all the news and programming of this show and many others to help you thrive in life. Spanglish World. Watch it, hear it, read it, download it, and leave it.
That was great. Thank you so much for having me, Joe. This was really fun, and I just really loved hanging out and talking with you this morning.
You're very welcome. Bye.